Okay, I'm back. Okay, guys, let's carry on with the zero relative. Rule number 3, when we cannot use the zero relative, right? When we cannot use the zero relative, that is verb plus ing. Okay? With some specific phrases. The first, the second, the last. We cannot use verb plus ing with these phrases. Okay? For example, he was the first person who arrived. Person who arrived. He was the first person who arrived. We cannot say he was the first person arriving. Okay? We cannot say he was the first person arriving. Arriving. In English, when we rank something or someone like first, second, last, we are focusing on the purpose. It points at the specific person. Okay? Another example. It's incorrect. Another example. The first person who walked on the moon. On the moon. We cannot say the first person walking on the moon. Okay? We are, again, when we rank something or someone like first, second, last, okay? Or only, we don't use verb plus ing, okay? We are focusing on the purpose. If you say the first person walking on the moon, it's like you are watching a movie and see a man walking on the moon. Or you're looking at the picture and describing what is happening inside the frame. Okay? So, when we use phrases such as the first, the second, the only, the last, we don't use ing. However, we can still use the zero relative. And we have two options. We can say the first person who walked on the moon, or we can say the first person to walk. Okay? The first person who walked on the moon, or the first person to walk on the moon. Two options. The first person to walk on the moon. On the moon. Okay? Again, be careful with these phrases. The first, the second, the last, the only. When you see these phrases, you should not use verb plus ing. Okay? And instead of saying he was the first person arriving, you should say he was the first person who arrived, correct? Or you can say, if you still want to delete this relative word, you can still say he was the first person, just you should add to arrive. Okay? Another example, and now I want you to turn this sentence into the zero relative. Let's see if you understood how we can use the zero relative with these phrases, okay? She is the only student. We have the phrase the only student who passed the test. Now, can someone turn this sentence into the zero relative? Ghost. And instead of saying she's the only student who passed the test, use the zero relative and turn this sentence into the zero relative clause. Anyone? We have the phrase the only. She is the only student who passed the test. Anyone? we should reduce this word. If I remove this word, how we can rephrase this sentence? She's the only student passed the test isn't correct. Passing the test, incorrect. Exactly. She is the only student to pass the test. Very well done. To pass. Exactly. To pass the test. Right? Very well done. Another example. He was the first person who arrived. He was the first person who arrived. Let's remove who. How we can turn this sentence into the zero relative. He was the first person What do you think? Excellent. Excellent, Kitty. He was the first person to arrive, right? Okay, both are correct. We can say he was the first person who arrived, or he was the first person to arrive. Correct? Correct. What we cannot say is he was the first person arriving. Incorrect. Okay? So, the same goes with which. Okay, we usually can use the zero relative with which, that, and who. Right? Today we are learning the zero relative. You're very welcome. If you didn't join my previous live lessons, you can go to my YouTube channel and watch them there, or maybe you just didn't understand the zero relative. So you can rewatch those videos on my YouTube. And thank you, Ted, for the follow. Guys, everything's clear when it comes to the phrases such as the first, the second, the last, the only. Okay. Definitely will show because my previous live lesson was stopped, maybe because of I don't know. Exactly, I'm recording the live lesson, so today I'm gonna upload this live lesson and the previous one, the part 1. This live lesson is part 2. So I'll upload it, both of them, on my YouTube channel, okay? Again, the zero relative when we cannot use ing, okay? When we cannot use verb plus ing. You're very welcome, lovely. So, the passive clauses, the passive. When a relative clause is passive, that is, something is being done to the subject, we don't use ing. Instead, we use past participle, the third form of the verb, like bought, taken, made, gone, etc. So basically, we cannot use the ing form when the noun receives the action. Otherwise, it sounds like the object is doing the action itself. For example, the phone that that was repaired by the man is on the table. Is on the table. Okay. We cannot say the phone repairing by the man is on the table. Okay? It sounds like the phone is doing the action itself. Okay? So when something is done to something, we cannot say repairing. The phone repairing by the man is on the table. We cannot add here ing because it will sound like the object, the phone, is doing the action itself. Okay? Instead, we use the past participle. What is the past participle? What is the third form of the verb? Can someone tell me what is the third form of the verb in English? Can someone tell me what is the third form of the verb? The past participle. Anyone? The third form of the verb is, for example, go. First form. The second, went. The third, gone. This is the third form of the verb, right? This is the third form of the verb. In other words, the past participle. Usually we use the third form for the perfect tenses, right? You have gone, or eat, ate, eaten, right? The third form. With a passive voice, we usually use these forms, right? So, when we have the sentence, the passive clauses, the phone that was repaired by the man is on the table, we do not add ing. Okay? We use the third form of the verb. With repaired, it's a third form. Okay? Repair, repaired, and repaired. Right. Repair, repair, repaired. The third form. Okay? So, we leave this word as it is. We just remove that and was and say the phone repaired by the man is on the table. Okay? So, when we have the passive clauses, when something is done to something, and we have the passive voice, we usually leave this verb as it is, the third form of the verb, and remove that and that was. We remove this, that, and was, and say The phone repaired by the man is on the table. Now I'm going to provide another example, and now I want you to turn this sentence into the zero relative. And let's see if you understood how the passive clauses work. Okay, so remember, the third form of the verb when it comes to the passive clauses: gone, eaten, repaired, etc. Okay, the third form of the verb. The houses that were built in 1920 are very strong. Now, can someone turn this sentence into the zero relative? We have the third form of the verb here: build, 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 right? Can someone use the zero relative and turn this sentence into the zero relative clause? Anyone? Excellent. Very well done. Is it Central, Simon? The houses built in 1920 are very strong. Excellent, Chaosha. The houses built in 1920 are very strong. So, again, the houses that were built in 1920 are very strong. Correct. And the houses built in 1920 are very strong. Okay? Correct. So again, guys, it's up to you. If you prefer using the relative word that, it's perfectly correct. If you sometimes, well, if you just prefer skipping these words, you are often lazy and prefer skipping these words, it's perfectly correct. And you can say the houses built in 1920 are very strong. It's optional, it's up to you. Okay? Okay, let's move on. The houses that were built in 1920 are very strong. Yeah, correct. Both of them are correct, right? The houses that were built in 1920 are very strong. The houses built in 1920 are very strong. Both of them are correct. Okay. Again, verb ing. Verb plus ing when we cannot use a verb plus ing. When something happened and finished in the past, if the action already happened and ended in the past, okay? We cannot use verb plus ing for single completed actions in the past. Because when you use ing, it usually means the action is ongoing or repeating, right? For example, the man who broke the leg yesterday is my boss. The man who broke the leg yesterday is my boss. We cannot say the man breaking the leg. We cannot use it for single completed actions in the past. Because when you use ing, it usually means the action is ongoing or repeating. The man breaking his leg sounds like in the middle of the breaking or of the bone snapping. It sounds like slow motion video, okay? So we cannot use for single completed actions in the past. The man who broke the leg yesterday, okay? We cannot change it here and say something like the man who broke the leg yesterday. No. The man breaking the leg yesterday. No. We should leave the sentence as it is. So if you feel like something happened and ended in the past, for single completed actions, it's better to leave the sentence as it is, okay? Because if we add ing, it will feel like something is ongoing or repeating, okay? Like you are watching the man breaking his leg, like a slow motion video, okay? In this case, it's better to leave the sentence as it is. And the last one, I guess. The last one. we already know that there are some other relative words, like let's name all the relative words we've learned so far. These are who, which, that. The zero relative works perfectly with these relative words, right? As we call it, the ghost, right? The ghost. However, when it comes to the relative words when, where, why, or whose, we cannot use verb plus ing. We cannot use verb plus ing, okay? With who, which, that, we already covered all the rules when we can and when we cannot use verb plus ing, right? With these relative words. When it comes to the when, where, why, and whose, we can never use verb plus ing. We cannot say the house where I live is old. We cannot say the house living is old, or the house I living in, the house living is old. No, we should follow the structure, follow the rules, right? Because, well, when it comes to the, where is it? Yeah, when it comes to the pronoun, right? When we can remove the relative word and leave the pronoun as it is, yeah, we can use where, when, why, right? We can say the house where I live is old, and we already know that we can skip this word here and say the house I live in is old. It's correct, okay? But we cannot say the house living is old, right? And of course, if you are new here, if you are a first-time listener, go to my YouTube channel where you can watch all my previous live lessons, all about the relative words, okay? All about the relative words. That is, what are the relative words? Like who, whom, which, that, whose, where, when, why. You will find all of the relative words where I explain how we can use them, when we can use them. I've explained all the basic rules and the logic behind the grammar when it comes to the relative clauses, right? We talked about the defining relative clauses and non-defining relative clauses. You can find all of those live lessons on my YouTube. All you need to do is to go to my profile, and you can find there all the information about my YouTube, about my courses, about the books, etc. Okay? Today's live lessons will be uploaded on my YouTube channel as well, so you can go and watch them or rewatch them, right? And I'll see you tomorrow at 10:30. Tomorrow we are going to practice, do some exercises all about from A1 to B1 level of English. Everything about relative clauses, the zero relative clauses, and so on, okay? So, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Okay? Have a nice rest of the day. Take care, guys. Thank you being here with me. Thank you for joining, for the likes, shares, follows. Really appreciate it. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.